So let's start the students. I'm going to start talking about the kind of the theme for this retreat. And the theme this year is, I don't know if you saw the poster. What was the poster again, Gerald? What does it say? The deep wisdom for troubled times? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that. Okay. So we're going to try to use the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha's wisdom, to sort of understand life a little bit better. And one of the, as you would know, probably most of you, and one of the main teachings of the Buddha that you see again and again in the suttas is the idea of the Four Noble Truths, Tattaro Ariya Satcha. And these Four Noble Truths are very interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, they are a very nice summary of the teachings. Yeah, if you understand the Four Noble Truths, you have a very good understanding of what the Buddha's teaching is about. So for this reason, it's very useful. It's kind of a shorthand to understand pretty much everything. Yeah? It is also a teaching which is an umbrella. It is a kind of a catch-all. All the other teachings of the Buddha, they fit into the Four Noble Truths. So the Four Noble Truths, kind of everything fits into these truths. So for that reason also it's very interesting. So if you really want to understand the Four Noble Truths fully, you have to read all the suttas. When you read all the suttas, then you kind of understand the Four Noble Truths fully. So this is a kind of a short version to all the suttas. It's very nice when you are a teacher, you can take some kind of container like that, and then you can talk about anything because it contains everything. So it's a trick from my part, so I kind of choose a topic which contains all other topics, and I can talk about whatever I want. That's kind of the idea here. So I'm just being very, very cheeky and very tricky. That's kind of the point of this. Not quite, but you get the idea. So this is, and this actually is specifically said in the suttas. There is a well-known sutta called the Maha-Ati Padopana Sutta, which it means the longest sutta on the elephant's footprint, found in the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle-length sayings of the Buddha. And it specifically says, the Venerable Sariputta was the Buddha's right-hand monk. We don't have him here, but he is usually on the right-hand side of the Buddha statue. Yeah, he sits like this. He sits like this. It's very kind of, it looks very, he sits like this. Is that how it sits? Something like this. All the other disciples of the Buddha, they sit like this, Anjali, but not Venerable Sariputta. He sits more like kind of more, I don't know, if it's a more kind of assertive posture or whatever you want to call it, not sure. But he is said in the suttas to be the right-hand monk of the Buddha, and the Buddha specifically says that if there is anyone who should carry on the teaching, if the Buddha passes away, it's Venerable Sariputta. And he says in the sutta that all good teachings, all kusala dhamma, kusala means like all good or skillful teachings, are contained within the Four Noble Truths. So whenever you read the suttas, it should somehow be contained within this. So they are all encompassing. So if you understand this framework, it means you understand what the Buddha's teaching is all about. And when you look at these Four Noble Truths in detail, you will see, for example, the first Noble Truth contains the 5 khandhas, and the Panchapadana khandha is right there in the first Noble Truth. The second and the third Noble Truth contain dependent origination, because this shows you the arising and cessation of suffering. And of course the last Noble Truth is the Eightfold Path, which contains all the aspects of practice. So everything is basically there, all of these little things. So which means that we have a good excuse to do all kinds of stuff as we go along, which is going to be interesting. But for me, one of the most interesting things about the Four Noble Truths is the fact that they are really also a way of thinking about right view in Buddhism. If you understand the Four Noble Truths, you have an outlook which accords with the outlook of the Buddha. The Buddha had a certain way of looking at the world, and that way of looking at the world is expressed in many ways, but the Four Noble Truths is one way of thinking about how the Buddha saw the world. And we want to approximate how we see the world should be approximately equivalent to how the Buddha saw the world. Because if we see the world as the Buddha saw it, it means that we have the foundation for being able to practice. Remember, right view, samma ditti, is at the very beginning of the Noble Eightfold Path. The path doesn't really work without right view. So if you have the right view in place, everything else tends to happen as a consequence. And I will give you a couple of examples straight away, just to clarify this point a little bit. And one of the things I mentioned very briefly yesterday is the importance of virtue, of morality, of sila in Buddhism. And sila, as I like to point out, is very profound in the Buddhist teachings. It is not really enough just to keep the 5 precepts. 5 precepts are great, and if you don't keep them, I would certainly recommend you to keep them. But really, we need to go beyond that if you want to have success on the Buddhist path. And so the sila in Buddhism also includes things like the good habits. Not just avoiding the bad, but doing good. Being kind, deliberately being kind to other people, saying kind words, being generous, and all of these kind of things are part of the Buddhist sila. So that is one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is to think in the right way. Yeah, when you meet other people, not to allow yourself to get upset too easily, but to have an understanding of other people, have compassion, understand that other people are conditioned to be what they are. They may look like they do bad things, but actually it's just conditioning. They are more like robots than independent, autonomous. Autonomous means like free, yeah? Well, you're free of conditioning. You're not autonomous beings. And so this is all part of this aspect of sila. It's very, very, very profound. The ability to always look at things in the right way, think about things with a positive, with metta and compassion and all of this. It takes a lot of commitment and perseverance on the Buddhist path to be able to practice like this. And so how can we get that commitment? How can we get that perseverance? It's one of those kind of fundamental questions. How, in your daily life, when you're busy with your family, with your work and all of these things, can you actually practice this sila fully? How can you remind yourself all the time of the importance of thinking in the right way? The mind is so fast. Before you know it, you are upset with somebody, yeah, because they talk to you in a nasty way or they do something unpleasant to you. We meet people like that every day. It's only here in Kaduri Center you don't meet people like that. Is that right? Here you meet only nice people. Even here maybe somebody sometimes says something which isn't quite right. Even here it happens, yeah, let alone kind of in the world outside, in Hong Kong or in Perth or in wherever it is that you might live. Sometimes I think it's better to live in the countryside because countryside people are usually more easygoing than city people. You know what it's like when you go to the countryside, people have more time, they're more relaxed, more at ease. You go to big cities, people are always stressed out and running around and doing crazy things. I think that's universal. Everywhere in the world, the countryside people seem to be more relaxed and easygoing. Anyway, so I say that it's everywhere in the world because sometimes we like to differentiate, we like to divide ourselves up into different kinds of people. But one of the interesting things that I find when I travel around the world, people are the same everywhere. I don't see much difference between people, and that's actually very beautiful. Because when you see that there is very little difference between people, you stop all this discrimination, the us against them, and all these divisions that we have in human society, and you come together instead, which is such a wonderful thing. We need more of that, more harmony in this world. There's too much antagonism, too much violence, too much division between human beings. So looking at the commonality is far more important. So how can we support sila when it is so hard, especially in daily life, to keep the sila, to keep the kindness, to remind ourselves? And the way to do that is to have right view. The more powerful that right view is, the more it will kind of be at the back of your mind at all times. It will kind of sitting there as a guard, guarding you against becoming silly, forgetting about what really matters in life. Right view has a very powerful impact on how we actually live our lives. And this is why you may, if you think about the Buddhist path, there comes a point when you become a stream enterer, Sutta Panna, Sovan in Sinhala. And the stream enterer is the first time you actually see the Buddha's teachings fully. And once you have seen them, right view is established, because now you have seen for yourself what the reality of things are. You have seen things according to the way the Buddha explained the world. And once you have seen that, you become perfect in virtue. is called Sila Sampanna in the sutras. Sila Paripunna, some one of those, I'm not sure, I can't remember now. But anyway, it means that you're perfect in conduct from that point on. Why? Because you have right view. It's established in your psyche, psychologically, you can't really get away from it. So the more, again, we approach the world from the point of right view, the more we see things according to the way the Buddha sees things, the more that will always be at the back of our mind, reminding us what really matters in life, what is important in life. Is it important to get things done, to pursue goals that are really false, that never really come about anyway? The reason why people get so obsessed with the worldly things is because they think it's important. Yeah, we're going to go somewhere, we're going to reach a goal. And when you realize how hollow, how empty these goals actually are, how they never really realize it, even if you do realize that there's just another goal beyond the horizon, because going on and on forever, when you realize the hollowness of those things, the more you see that as it clearly is, the more you understand instead the spiritual life is where the real goals are to be found, the real purpose, the real aim, the real meaning is to be discovered in the spiritual life instead. And then every time you are in a difficult situation, that mindfulness arises, that reminds you of what is important. And this is the power of right view. It's always there at the back of your mind, guiding you in the right way, telling you, why am I getting so involved in these worldly things when there's nothing there? There's nothing to be had there. And this is one of the things I want to bring out, is this emptiness of the world, how there's nothing there to really be had. People pursue things that are empty, pointless, where there is no goal, and there is an alternative to that. And that alternative viewpoint is really what right view is about. So this is to support your sila, and sila is the foundation for meditation practice and wisdom and all good things in Buddhism. And that right view is also very useful for meditation itself. Yeah, if you sit down and you have got wrong view, one of the problems of wrong view is the idea that you prioritize the worldly things. You think the things in the world are the most important ones. Yeah, your life is what really matters. Yeah, I'm going to get some meditation so I become more efficient in my ordinary life. Some people think, yeah, I'm going to become a better parent, I'm going to become a better executive, I'm going to become a better worker, I'm going to become a better husband or wife, a better child, or whatever it is, yeah? And of course, this happens as well. These things is a byproduct, but that shouldn't be the main point of the spiritual path. Because if that is the main point of the spiritual path, and this is what you see if you if you look around the world, you see the mindfulness movement, you see how Buddhist teachings are being taught, especially in the West. Yeah, people in the West haven't got a clue about Buddhism, but they think they kind of understand, and they kind of like the ideas, but really they don't have a clue. And because they haven't got a clue, the idea is that I will use these Buddhist teachings to enhance the rest of my life. So yes, most people everywhere don't really understand the Buddhist teachings very well. And there's a lot of education that is required for people to understand these things. So they use the Buddhist teachings to become more efficient in their ordinary life. And that's okay, you can do that, but it's very shallow. It doesn't take you very far, because what it means is that as soon as you sit down on your cushion, as soon as you're trying to meditate, because your ordinary life is more important than your spiritual life, you're going to think about your ordinary life. You're going to think, as soon as you become a bit peaceful, yeah, okay, that problem I have to resolve, yeah? You're going to start thinking about that problem. Why? Because you think your ordinary life is what really matters. So you need to change that around. You need to prioritize your spiritual life instead. Understand that your spiritual life is what really matters. That is where there is a real goal. That is where real happiness, real satisfaction, real contentment can be found, not in your worldly life. And when you get your priorities right, you sit down on your meditation cushion, you become peaceful because you have no interest in the world anymore. The world is irrelevant. Who cares about the world? It's not going to give you any happiness anyway. This is where it's going on, and you become peaceful, and you start to be able to be quiet inside, and then your meditation starts to work. So having this idea of right view is so important. Yeah, this is how it works. It supports everything on the spiritual path, and that is why it matters so enormously. And the Four Noble Truths are a very interesting and powerful expression of these of this idea of right view. So let's see what the Buddha has to say about this. Now this particular sutta, a very famous sutta, is called the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. I always like to say the Pali because it sounds a bit more impressive than saying the English. So I'm trying to kind of get you a bit impressed. Yeah, that's kind of the idea behind that. So anyway, it's nice to say the Pali because the Pali is where it comes from. And the Pali suttas are kind of the closest we get today to the word of the Buddha. It's actually very close. And recently there have been some scholars who argued that the Buddha basically spoke Pali, not exactly as we have it now, but very similar. So this is the nice thing about the Indian text, that you come close to the Buddha's own language. Dhammacakkappavattana, so the rolling forth of the wheel of the Dhamma. And you will see, if you have the suttas here, you will see that you have a little reference for each sutta. There's a reference point. It says SN 56.11. And SN means the Samyutta Nikaya, connected discourses of the Buddha. 57 means the 56, sorry. There's no 57, so I'm leading you astray there. I'm supposed to be right if you're not wrong view I'm giving you. So, so 56 is the suttas, connected suttas on the truths, the Satcha Samyutta, on the noble truths. This is the 11th sutta. And this sutta is interesting because it is supposed to be the first teaching of the Buddha, the first thing he taught after his awakening. He taught this to his 5 first disciples. And of course, when you give your very first teaching, you are setting out what this Dhamma is all about. So very interesting from that particular point of view. And the story behind this is actually quite nice. Yeah, the story, and you can read the story, and you can read the biography of the Buddha in many places in the suttas, and you find the story of the Buddha's awakening when he talks about how he reached his awakening, and you find other stories where the Buddha talks about how he overcame the defilements of the mind and all of these kind of things. So he talks about his own practice, and it's all very inspiring and interesting. So the background to this is that the Buddha reached awakening, and just before he reached awakening, he realized that actually the path to awakening is not through austerities. Yeah, and then as soon as he gave up his austerities, he started taking some food, because before that he had hardly been eating. He almost died before that. As soon as he started to take solid food, his 5 followers, his 5 disciples, or whatever they were, they left him. Because they said, he's taking solid food, he's given up the spiritual practice, and so they left him. And the point is that at that time in India, in ancient India, the idea of spiritual practice was the idea of tormenting the body, often called self-mortification in English, which is kind of a bit of a mouthful, but tormenting yourself is the idea. You don't eat, you torture the body, and by doing this somehow you're supposed to reach awakening. That's kind of the idea behind this. So as soon as he did that, they left him, because suddenly this person who was to become the Buddha, he was going against the prevailing ideas in India about what spiritual life is supposed to be about. And this is kind of the point about the Buddha. The point about the Buddha is that he goes against the grain. He sees things in a new way. If he didn't, there wouldn't be a point to the Buddha. Yeah? The idea is that he goes in a different direction from everyone else. That's why he discovers something new. Otherwise, you would never discover anything new if you just follow what everyone else was saying. So there is in Buddhism, there is a basis for being a bit, you have to be a bit kind of, go outside of the norm to be a proper practicing Buddhist. You can't just follow what everyone else does, because you're never going to get anywhere if you do that. And then the Buddha practices deep meditation, and then he reaches awakening as a consequence afterwards. So he has rejected the idea of tormenting the body, and earlier before that he has rejected the idea of sensual indulgence. When he left the ordinary life, he had a very kind of nice and pleasant upbringing, and so he left that ordinary life, and then now he leaves the self-tormenting. So he has left these two kind of extremes of indulgence and tormenting the body. And now this is the background for this. And then he goes to to find his 5 earlier disciples to teach them this discovery that he has made. There's a nice little episode which also is very instructive there, which I maybe should bring out very briefly. It doesn't really relate so much to the Four Noble Truths, but anyway, it relates to the general idea of Dhamma regardless. And this is soon after the Buddha has reached awakening, he starts walking and he starts going to Benares, to Varanasi, and you can go to Benares to this day in India. It's this ancient Indian city. It existed already 2,500 years ago. Yeah, this is India. Things stand still, nothing happens. And if you go there, it looks like it's 2,500 years old. That's the feeling you get when you go to Varanasi. It looks really ramshackle, as if it's going to fall down any minute. So as the Buddha is walking from the place of awakening, which is a long way from Varanasi, several hundred kilometers, it would have been a long walk to walk. On the way, he meets this person, this fellow called Upaka. And Upaka is a disciple of a different sect. They call it Ajivakas, which is one of the ancient sects of India. And this Upaka, you can imagine, he's one of the first people to meet the Buddha. And this is straight after the Buddha's awakening. You can imagine what it is like, what kind of person you are. You have just awakened to the truth of existence. You have understood the human condition fully. You are the greatest spiritual genius in human history. You have seen something incredibly profound. You can imagine how that affects your being, how you are as a person. You may have a little bit of meditation and you feel a little bit peaceful and calm. Maybe you feel a lot of peace and calm. The Buddha is just way beyond that. So he will be incredibly radiant, extraordinarily peaceful. There will be a power about this person, which is just really hard to imagine when you meet them. Not a power in the sense of scary, but a power in the sense of something very pure, very beautiful, very wholesome in a way. So this Upaka, he meets the Buddha just after his awakening, and he looks at the Buddha and he goes, "Whoa, what happened to you, man? What happened to you, man? Wow!" And because you can see there's something about this person that is completely changed and different. So he asks him, "Well, your faculties are so pure, you look so bright. Who is your teacher?" Because in India, everybody had a teacher. If you didn't have a teacher, you were a bit suspect. It makes sense. If you go down the streets of Hong Kong and some fellow comes up to you and says, "I'm enlightened," what are you going to say? Are you going to say, "Get lost"? Or are you going to say, "Yes, please teach me the path"? You're probably going to say, "Okay, whatever." You're going to walk on. You're not going to be too interested, because most people who say that, they are a bit nuts. People who say, "I'm enlightened." So usually it's a problem. So usually you go, "Okay, whatever," and you're going to walk on. Maybe so. And this is exactly what happened to Upaka. The Buddha says, "Actually, I have no teacher. I'm self-awakened." And Upaka says, "Well, that means you must be some kind of universal conqueror." And the Buddha says, "Yes, that's right, I'm a universal conqueror." And then Upaka says, "Yeah, whatever," and he walks off. And this is such a powerful lesson. It's so powerful because sometimes people say that, "Well, I'm going to wait till the next Buddha comes around, because when the next Buddha comes around, then Buddhism is going to be much stronger. Now it's really decadent, it's all falling apart, nobody can get enlightened in the present day. But the next time Buddhism comes around, you're going to be like Upaka. You're going to see the Buddha, and you say, 'Yeah, whatever,' and you're going to walk off." Because remember, this is the beginning. Now the reason why we can be Buddhist is because Buddhism is it's a strong religion. It's one of the great religions in the world. So many people are Buddhists. It's quite easy to become a Buddhist in the present day. But if it's at the very beginning, it's very hard to discern. You have to be incredibly sharp and smart and wise to be able to see that someone has to become a Buddha. Most likely, you will just dismiss him and you will walk off. And it's then said that the Upaka, he went on the Ummagga. Ummagga means the wrong path. And the wrong path here is both literal and also metaphorical. He literally walked off in the wrong direction. Instead of following the Buddha, he walked somewhere else. And also, spiritually, he went on the wrong path. So this is a very powerful lesson. It means that, well, we have Buddhism now. Don't wait for Maitreya. Probably it's not going to be called Maitreya anyway. That's probably just one of those rumors. Don't wait for the next Buddha. You may not be here. You may be reborn somewhere in the wrong place, and even if you're reborn in the right place, you won't recognize the Buddha. Now is the time to practice. It's a beautiful little parable of what usually happens to people when they try to, when they have the wrong ideas about things. Anyway, don't be like Upaka. Yeah? This is one of the lessons of this. So, the Buddha carries on, kind of Upaka goes off, the Buddha maybe he just shrugs his shoulders, and what can you do? Some people are ready, some are not. So he carries on, and then he travels all the way to Benares. And that's where he meets the 5 monks who looked after him before. And initially the 5 monks don't want to listen to the Buddha because they think, you're backsliding, you live in luxury, they say to him. You're living in he had a bit of food, now he's living in luxury because he had a bit of food. Yeah? This is kind of how harsh the ideas were at that time. And so he meets this 5 disciples, and this is where this Dhamma Chakka Pavatana Sutta starts. So, let's just read this. I should say, by the way, that this translation is by Ajahn Bhante Sujato. Some of you may have heard of him. He stayed in Taiwan for 2 years, and all he did in those 2 years in Taiwan was translating suttas. 2 years translating suttas. He was locked up in a kuti, meditation, morning and night, and then translating the rest of the time. I don't think he went walking anywhere. I don't think he did much exercise in those 2 years, and he kind of becoming bigger and bigger. That's the downside of these things. Yeah, but all you do is translating. It kind of gradually expand in this way. So hopefully he also expanded in wisdom. So if you expand in wisdom, then it's okay to expand in body. But if you go down in wisdom and up in body, that's a really bad combination. So hopefully expand always. So this is what happens in this sutta. So his translation, and I will point out a few ways you can recognize Ajahn Sudato's translation straight away, because he uses some kind of typical terms. So if you don't like his translation, if you see one with these terms, you know that this is the wrong sutta for you, because you should find another translator instead. Because this is why I'm telling you, so you can kind of recognize these things. And if you like it, then you know you have the right sutta. One of the things about these translations of Ajahn Sujato is that they are quite easy to read. One of the things about English translations is that it's not just people who have English as their first language who read these suttas. Yeah? A lot of people who have English as their second language, like most people here in Hong Kong, also read the suttas in English these days, because English they are very accessible, much more accessible than most other languages. Myself, English is really my second language. Well, it used to be, and I'm not sure what is my second language anymore, but it used to be my second language. Now it's kind of my joint first language, perhaps, because I've been speaking it for so long, I can barely remember when Norwegian was my first language anymore. But the point is, and he deliberately thought about that when he translated the sutta, that so many people read this as a second language. And because of that, it should be relatively simple. It shouldn't be too complicated. You shouldn't need a dictionary to be able to understand this, yeah? And so he fairly short sentences and using vocabulary that is not too complex and hard to understand. Yeah, this is kind of the idea. So if you have been turned off by the suttas before because it just seemed too hard to read, this might be more accessible. So check it out. It's always worthwhile trying it and at least see what happens. So this is how this sutta begins. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Benares in the deer park at Isipatana. There the Buddha addressed the group of 5 mendicants. Mendicants, that's Ajahn Sujato, is the only person in the known universe who uses mendicants. So if you see the word mendicant, you know straight away, Ajahn Sujato, Ajahn Sujato. That is one of the ways you recognize his translation. The word mendicant in English means someone who begs for alms, yeah, someone who relies on somebody else for alms. That's the meaning of this word. So it is very suitable for a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni. The word bhikkhu means someone who lives on alms. Bhikka in Pali language means alms food. And bhikkhu is someone who lives on alms food, yeah, on the donations of others. So That's the idea behind this translation, otherwise maybe you find it a little bit strange. So, the Buddha says, the first thing he says to these mendicants is as follows. And of course the idea also with mendicant is that it is gender neutral. You don't know when you hear the word mendicant whether you are dealing with monks or nuns. It includes both. This is also quite nice in a sense, because otherwise the suttas become very monk-centric. But actually it is, it's not really the case. It's supposed to be both for monks and nuns, and also for lay people as well. Mendicants, these two extremes should not be cultivated by one who has gone forth. What two? Indulgence in sensual pleasures, which is low, crude, ordinary, ignoble, and pointless. And indulgence in self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, and pointless. Avoiding these two extremes, the realized one, in other words, the Buddha, woke up by understanding the middle way, which gives vision and knowledge and leads to peace, direct knowledge, awakening, and extinguishment. So this is the first teaching of the Buddha. And this is the teaching that people forget so often. Yeah, maybe it's too long ago because it was the first teaching, maybe that's why they forget it, not sure. But the very first one, of course, for that reason, it matters. It matters enormously to actually remember this. And two extremes, the Pali for this is anta. Anta means like an end. And extremes is, I don't know if I really quite like this translation because it sounds a bit extreme. You know what I mean? Extreme sounds a bit extreme. So I think two opposites, I think, is better. These are the two opposites because it doesn't kind of sound so, it sounds a bit more accessible if you call it that. So these two opposites should not be cultivated by one who has gone forth. Instead, you find the middle way between these opposites. Yeah? These opposites here, you will notice that they are the indulgence in sensual pleasure. And this is what life is like for the most people in this world, is the idea of enjoying the world. Yeah, that's what it means, enjoying the world, whatever relationships and entertainments and BMWs and that kind of stuff. That is kind of what the enjoyment of sensual pleasures is like. And look at how the Buddha talks about that. He talks about as low. Low is hina. Hina is like in hina yana. Yeah? Hina means low or inferior. So it's low. Why? And the reason why it is low, inferior, is not because it is necessarily bad as such. It means that there isn't that much happiness to be had there. And there's a lot of suffering to be had in that world. Because the happiness isn't that great, and there's a lot of suffering, and that's why it's low. So you want to kind of look at something which is better. And this is kind of one of the ideas of right view in Buddhism, understanding where real happiness is to be found. And the vast majority of people in the world have no idea where real happiness is to be found. And that's why you need to think a bit different from the majority if you're going to find something meaningful in this world. So it is low, it is inferior, because it doesn't really give you what you're looking for. It is crude. Crude here, what is the Pali word? Gamma is the Pali word. It means like ordinary, yeah? Ordinary happiness. The happiness of ordinary people. Then you have ordinary here as well. This is portujanika. It means relating to ordinary people, the standard people in the world, the many people. Putu, many jhana people. Ignoble means an arya. Arya is the noble ones, the people who have a deeper insight into reality. This is the opposite. So again, refers to the common ideas of the world. Yeah, and it's pointless. Isn't that kind of powerful? It's pointless. Yeah, the sensual pleasures are pointless. In other words, it doesn't get you anywhere. Atta, the idea of atta, in English is anatta, samhita. And Sangita means connected with, and atta is like something which has meaning, something which has a purpose, something which is beneficial. It means all of these things. Atta is a very rich term in Pali language. But ordinary pleasures are pointless. they don't go anywhere. There is no goal. You just keep on indulging and indulging. And every time you indulge, the craving goes stronger, so you must indulge a bit more. And there is no limit to that. There is no kind of end point, final satisfaction. It just goes on and on and on. No point, no goal anywhere. And if you think like that, then after a while it gets very tiring running after these things that don't have any real point to them, no purpose. Just endless running around. It's like ants. We're like ants. If you look at ants on the ground, they're working, working, working. But what is the purpose for their working of these little ants? We think it's silly to run around like that. All you're doing is building this nest and then you die. What's the point? But we are just like ants in a sense. Yeah, we're running around, working really hard for some kind of pie in the sky, a castle in the air, something which doesn't actually exist. And then we keep on running. Why? Because there's something inside of us that drives us on, that tells us there will be satisfaction if you do things in this world. But actually, it is pointless. And this is the difference between the spiritual path and the path, the worldly path, is that the spiritual path actually has a point to it. There is a goal, there is a real aim, there is a purpose. We are actually going somewhere. And this is the difference. It's a very powerful difference. I talked about this, I don't know, I gave a talk at Namaloka quite recently, which was on a similar kind of issue. That was just last Friday, actually. And I made one of the interesting things about Buddhism is the Buddhist idea of time. Yeah, I can talk maybe a bit more about this later on. The Buddhist idea of time is very different from the usual Western idea of time. Asian idea of time is one thing. Asian idea of time is very closely connected with Buddhism and kind of Asian religions. Buddhism is obviously an Asian religion, and whereas Western idea of times are connected to Western religions. Yeah? In the West, Christianity obviously has been very powerful in influencing the way we think in the West, the way Western philosophy works. All the Western thought is very strongly influenced by Christianity. And in Christianity, it doesn't make any sense. This is how Christianity works. According to Christianity, there's God in the beginning, and God creates the world, beginning of everything. And then time flows on and on and on and on, and then you come to like Judgment Day. And Judgment Day is when the world comes to a stop. The world comes to an end. And this is the Western idea of time. It's a linear idea of time where it has a starting point and it has a goal, and in between you're kind of moving towards that goal. This is kind of the Christian idea of time. So it is a linear idea, but for that reason there is the illusion of happiness, the illusion of meaning, because you're moving towards a certain goal, and then you work really hard, and then if you do it in the right way, when Judgment Day comes, and then you go to heaven, and those who are bad, the Buddhists, they go to hell because they're believing in the wrong God, So Buddhists, we have a real problem according to Christianity. So you go, it's a linear idea of time, and this has is very influential in the Western way of thinking, and that's why, for example, when it comes to science, for example, in the West, modern kind of astronomy is influenced by this. So we have the idea of the Big Bang. The universe starts at the Big Bang, and then it kind of travels on, and then it kind of peters out into nothing. So there is a clear beginning, and there's like an end point where the universe just disperses into nothing eventually. And that, I think, is influenced by the Christian idea of a beginning point and then an end point. If it wasn't for that, you might have thought about the cyclical universe instead. Why should there be a beginning point? Well, I think it comes from that. So the whole Western idea has this linearity to it. You move from a beginning, you move towards an end. And for that, there is an illusion of purpose, an illusion of a goal. But the Buddhist idea, which to me is far more realistic and far more meaningful, is not linear time, but cyclical time. Time goes in cycles. First we have the basic cycles of rebirth, where you go around and around, you come back again and again. But you also have the bigger universal cycles, where the universe starts, and then it goes around, and it comes back, and it collapses on itself again, and then restarts, going in these vast cycles, eon after eon, carrying on and on and on. And if you think about time as cyclical rather than linear, it has incredibly important implications. It actually makes you think about the world in an entirely different way. Because if it is linear, we have a purpose, we're going towards something. If time is cyclical, then suddenly the purpose vanishes. We're not going anywhere. We're always coming back. We're always starting out where we began. Or we're ending up where we began. We go around, we start out, and then we come back again to the beginning. We get reborn, same life again. The universe starts over here, goes around, and comes back to the beginning again. There is no goal. There is no purpose. It's this roaming around in the universe, not actually going anywhere. You can see the difference there. And of course, that difference in outlook also has a tremendous difference in how then you view the world, how you think about the spiritual life, what actually is important in the world. Because if you're always going around, almost coming back to the same point, after a while you wonder, why am I doing this? It's kind of silly. I want to get somewhere, I want to do something which actually gets me somewhere. And that is what the spiritual practice is all about. So this is the idea of being pointless, the ordinary pursuit of the pleasures of the world don't get you anywhere. You don't reach anywhere. You don't get to any conclusion. Whereas the spiritual life does. Gradually, 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 you are extracting yourself from the swamp of samsara. Swamp of samsara, yeah? It's sticky, yeah? You get your boots, you sunk into the swamp, and you can't pull yourself out again afterwards. And you kind of get stuck in the swamp of samsara. So make sure you gradually pull yourself out of the swamp. And this is what this idea is about. So that is the first one. Let's just also have a quick look at the second one here. This is the extreme of here called self-mortification. I call it self-torment, which is painful, ignoble, and pointless. Yeah, this is the other side of this coin. And this is the idea that you torture the body, and by torturing the body, then you kind of, somehow you reach some kind of awakening experience. This has been, if you look at human history, very common thing that people do everywhere through human history, trying to release the soul or the mind or whatever from ordinary life so as to reach a higher spiritual attainment. But it's painful, yeah, it's dukkha. Ignoble again, you don't actually become a noble person through this, and again, this also is pointless. It doesn't get you anywhere. And this is how humanity, we oscillate between those two things. Either you indulge too much, or you practice painful austerities. And it's interesting how common this path is of practicing this self-tormenting. You find it in almost all religions. Yeah, you find it in Christianity. People was tormenting themselves. You find it in Hinduism. Hinduism is famous for all the self-tormenting. Yeah, you find it apparently in almost all religions, and you find it also in Buddhism, which is kind of weird because we are specifically told not to do it, and still we kind of do it. Yeah, we kind of go on retreats and we sit and we kind of experience pain in the body. And you think, yeah, this is good. Yeah, this leads to liberation. Pain of the body. It doesn't, it says here. It doesn't lead to liberation. The Buddha said it doesn't lead to liberation, but still we think so. It's interesting. Why is that? Why is it so deep-seated in us? The idea that pain and part of it is because we are used to the worldly ideas. If you work really hard, yeah, there's always a degree of suffering and working really hard. If you work really hard, then you get some result. So we're used to that idea from ordinary existence. But I think it's also a deeper psychological thing here. We know that if we indulge too much in the world, if we attach too much to the sensual pleasures of the world, we don't really liberate the mind. We can feel that we attach to that world. We can feel that, when these things get taken away from us, we suffer. So we know there is a problem in that sensual world. And so then we do the opposite. Yeah, we think that by tormenting ourselves, then we're doing the opposite of that and kind of getting rid of that sensual pleasure through tormenting. And it kind of there's a kind of logic to it, but unfortunately it doesn't work. And it turns out to be the wrong kind of logic. And so for this reason, be careful of these ordinary logics. You have to go into a deeper kind of logic. This is the logic of the Buddha in this path. So then, having avoided those two opposites, yeah, then we come to the middle path which the Buddha has awakened to. I'm gonna go on for an hour and a half altogether. Should I just keep going, or should we have a break, or should we just keep going? What should we do now? Break? Yeah? Okay, let's have a short break then. Let's have a 5 or 10 minute break, and then we can come back and continue afterwards. Okay.